This is question number 56 from book number 1 based on the 2020 NEC, and this is electricaltime.com. You reconditioned the transfer switch for an optional standby system, installed it, and the electrical inspector failed the job. Why? A. When you reconditioned the transfer switch, you did not remove the existing listing label. B. When you reconditioned the transfer switch, you did not send in the transfer switch to have it inspected, tested, and relisted by UL. C. Transfer switches for optional standby systems are not allowed to be reconditioned. Or is it D? Transfer switches can only be reconditioned by qualified persons. Just want to take 30 seconds to let you know what we do here at electricaltime.com. We do online electrical classes from the comfort of your home. And then we also have this free service. So if you click on the subscribe for free NEC questions, Monday through Friday, you'll get an NEC code question and an answer sent to your email. All right, so back to our video. And the answer to this question is C. Transfer switches for optional standby systems are not allowed to be reconditioned. All right, so the first question we're going to ask ourselves, what article are we talking about here? And here in the question, we see optional standby systems, and that is Article 702. And that is within Chapter 7, Special Conditions. And then when we're in 702 for optional standby systems, we're looking at the parts, and we find Part 1, which is general. Then we find 702.5 for transfer equipment. Then we find 702.5a for general. So again, this is a very, very strict rule that the NEC has. And the NEC does not allow optional standby systems to be reconditioned. And again, this is per 702.5a. And let me just read that to you, so that you really can see how strict this rule is in the NEC. And again, this is going to be 702.5a, and it's called general. And it says, transfer equipment shall be required for all standby systems subject to the requirements of this article and for which an electric utility supply is either the normal or standby source. Transfer switches shall not be permitted to be reconditioned. And there's a period after that. It doesn't give you any exceptions or any other ways to do it. It just says that it shall not be permitted. All right, so what I have here is some extra stuff in my textbook. So here is a list of equipment that the NEC does not permit to be reconditioned. This list might not be complete. I just want you to see that this rule of not permitting reconditioning of equipment is far-reaching. All right, so the first one that I found was attachment plugs, cord connectors, and flange surface devices, and that's 406.7. Then equipment that provides GFCI protection for personnel, and that's 210.15.1. Then equipment that provides AFCI protection, and that is 210.15.2. Then equipment that provides ground fault protection of equipment, and that's 210.15.3. Then we've got fire pump controllers, and that's 695.10. Then we've got low voltage listed lighting systems, and that's 411.4. Then we've got low voltage lighting systems assembled from listed parts, and that is 411.4. Then low voltage fuse holders and low voltage non-renewable fuses, and that's 240.62. Then low voltage power circuit breaker electronic trip units, and that's 240.88b1. Next, luminaires, lamp holders, and retrofit kits, and that's 410.71. And again, I'm going to read that one again. I'm going to highlight the whole thing here. So we cannot recondition luminaires, lamp holders. And obviously, they have something called the retrofit kit, but probably a lot of people have never used retrofit kits, especially, if you're looking at a chandelier, let's say that's 100 years old and you want to recondition it. So my interpretation of this from 410.71, it says luminaires. Is a chandelier a luminaire? I think so. So 410.71 says we cannot recondition it. All right, so the next on the list that I found was a molded case circuit breakers, and that's 240.88A1. Next, medium voltage fuse holders and medium voltage non-renewable fuses, and that's 240.102. Panel boards, 408.A. And you know what? I am going to go into my code book right now. And if you could put the video on pause here for a second, I'm going to just find that, just to make sure that my eyes are not playing tricks on me. And again, that's 408.8A in our code book. And here in the 2020 code book, it's a new section, and it's called reconditioning of equipment. And again, I'm at 408.8A. And it says reconditioning of equipment within the scope of this article shall be limited as described in 408.8A and B. The reconditioning process shall use design qualified parts verified under applicable standards and performed in accordance with any instructions provided by the manufacturer. If equipment has been damaged by fire, products of combustion, or water, it shall be specifically evaluated by its manufacturer or a qualified testing laboratory to bring returned to service. And again, we're looking at A now. Let's see what that says here. And that is 408.8A, panel boards. It says panel boards shall not be permitted to be reconditioned. This shall not prevent the replacement of a panel board within an enclosure. In the event the replacement has not been listed for the specific enclosure and available fault current is greater than 10,000 amps, the completed work shall be field labeled, and any previously applied listing marks on the cabinet that pertain to the panel board shall be removed. All right, so there's a lot of information in there, and in 408.8, in reconditioning of equipment, it sort of says that we can, but when we read A in panel boards, and I'll read this again, it says panel boards shall not be permitted to be reconditioned. All right, so a lot of stuff in there, and I had to read it twice for myself, to really make sure that I understood it correctly. All right, so next we've got receptacles, and that's going to be 406.3A. Then we got transfer switches for fire pump controllers, and that's 695.10. Then we got transfer switches for emergency systems, and that's 700.5C. Then we have transfer switches for legally required standby systems, and that's 701.5C. Then we've got transfer switches for optional standby systems, and that's the one we just did, and that's 702.5A. And then we got transfer switches for critical operations power systems, and we also call that COPS, and that's 708.24A. All right, so you can see that this rule of not permitting these equipment to be reconditioned is pretty far-reaching in the National Electrical Code. And again, the answer to this question is C. Transfer switches for optional standby systems are not allowed to be reconditioned and that is code reference 702.5A.